Welcome back. Chicago's Morning Answer. I'm John Anthony, filling in for Dan Prof. He's my good friend, former ABC 7 reporter Charles Thomas.
I'm filling in for Amy.
Yes, you are. You don't look as good as Amy, though. Sorry, Charles. I'm sorry, brother.
That's all right. That's all right.
She's Amy Jacobson, I just want to say something about that last interview. I think that sometimes when we have interviews like that, a lot of people think that we're not looking for accountability to police officers. There's a process as it relates to police officers who do bad things. The color of law, the civil 1983, section 1983, which cops can, lose their job for doing things. But I think that's a very important. I think that's something that needs to be done, Charles.
And I think Chief Weitzel put it point blank that, hey, we have a quality problem in terms of recruiting. We're not getting the same kind of recruit we got 10 years ago because nobody wants to be a cop.
Dude, and that's insane. But, we got our next guest, and I want to get straight to it because I do want to bring up this Candace Owens clip and have him hear it. He's the editor of Spectator.org, Scott McKay. Scott, I know you. Everybody knows who you are, so I'm going to get right to it because there's a couple of things that I want. When I saw that your name was on the list to bring in, I was like, there's some things I would love to talk to Scott McKay about because you deal with these issues that as it relates to race. But I want to first get into this. What the heck were Republicans thinking with this porcupine bill that Chuck Schumer and the other three eggheads were trying to ram down the throats of Congress? What why is it really important that people that are listening to this show know what was actually getting ready to happen? Because I read through the 1,547-page bill and only to end up with 100 plus pages of a bill that finally passed. What is with that, Scott McKay?
Well, I'm not sure. I will say this. The way it played out was a disaster for the Democrats.
Yeah.
Because they didn't get any of the stuff that they were looking for, but they did get all of the negatives for trying to put it in the bill. So I'm not 100% sure that this wasn't, to some extent, a rope-a-dope by Trump and Mike Johnson and the Republican leadership in the House.
Right.
Which is, hey, guys, we can't get a consensus in our caucus. We need Democrat votes. So you tell me what you need to pass this thing, right?
Yeah.
And then they lard it up with all kinds of stuff that enrages the public. Vivek and Elon are absolutely ready with the long knives as soon as it comes out. And then, essentially the next two are skinny and skinnier CRs. Now, the money is the same, which is bad. Don't get me wrong about that. But, again, you have to have something that will go through the Senate and that Biden will sign. You just managed to avoid all of the really awful pork, despite the fact that Democrats got dinged for it. So there's a win there, and the Democrats seized on this thing at the end because, they were looking for any kind of win they could get, and what they got was Trump didn't get the debt limit increase that would take that off the table for him for at least a couple of years. I don't think that's a major consideration. The problem is this. You're not in regular order where the budget is concerned, so you don't actually have a budget. What you have is, a kick the can down the road thing that happens at the end of every year so that no real work is done on eliminating all of this waste and fraud and abuse in the federal budget. Now, hopefully this year, when you have Republicans in charge of the Senate, the House, and the White House, and Elon and Vivek with Doge, you might actually be able to start paring this thing back and get to some sense of normality or sanity when it comes to federal spending. This is honestly the last chance to be able to do that.
Is Mike Johnson? Sorry about that. Go ahead.
Well, sort of point of order here. I know Mike Johnson. I'm friends with him. Okay, I've known him since before he even was in the Louisiana State Legislature. This is not what Mike Johnson wants to be doing.
Right.
Okay, the speaker's job is really hard, and it's even harder because there's a pretty, hard core of conservative Republicans, the Freedom Caucus, and folks like that, who I would be part of if I was in the House.
Yeah.
That refuse to vote for any budget, essentially, that isn't balanced. I would hold that line too. The problem is that's not Mike Johnson's job, right? His job is to pass must-pass things, and if he can't get enough Republicans to pass those things, he's got to go fishing for Democrat votes. This is the reason Mike Johnson is the Speaker, and none of the people who were better known at the time wanted the job, is because it's an impossible job. Now, I think the way home is to go hard right on fiscal conservatism and start passing, or at least attempting to pass, balanced budgets. That way you should be able to get the Freedom Caucus and other House conservatives to come aboard. The problem is when you only have 220 votes or so, you can't afford to lose anybody in your caucus, and it makes it almost impossible, especially since Republicans are not Democrats. Democrats vote how they're told, whereas Republicans actually, at least enough of them to matter, vote their conscience and what their constituents want. And it's for the leadership, that's super inconvenient. I'm not here to tell you that we should care about their problems, but this is the situation. So under the circumstances, nobody likes the CR, but it actually wasn't that bad that you smoked out all of the crazy stuff the Democrats would do if they had a chance. They want to give themselves pay raises. They want to immunize themselves from legal consequences to illegal behavior like the January 6th Commission engaged in, and all these other things. So, I don't think it was the total loss that everybody who was caterwauling during the process made it out to be, but there's no question this thing has got to be done better.
I agree.
Can Mike Johnson survive?
No.
Yeah, because I don't know who. Okay, if it's not Mike, then who is it?
That's a good question for
you.
you.
Who wants the job and who can get to 218 votes? And the answer is nobody.
Nobody.
Elon Musk. No, I'm just kidding.
Wow.
I've seen that bandied about.
Elon doesn't want that job.
I wouldn't take it.
Nobody wants. That's the thing. Nobody wants the job. It's a completely thankless, impossible job to do.
Right.
I mean, it really is. When you're this deeply divided. And here's the thing. It would be so much easier to be a Republican House Speaker if they had not utterly, Kevin McCarthy's the guy who's responsible for this, utterly dropped the ball on the way the census counts, which includes illegal aliens for the purposes of congressional apportionment, which is something like 15 or 20 seats that the Democrats got that they shouldn't have. And then you've got this insanity, the way that particularly lower courts, and the Supreme Court screwed it up too, the way they're doing, they've interpreted the Voting Rights Act, which essentially gives affirmative action for black Democrat politicians. Like when Tim Scott and Byron Donalds and, to go back, Neil Love and Burgess Owens and some of these other folks, there's plenty of black Republicans that can get elected to Congress and the statewide things and all this kind of stuff. You don't need to make patently Democrat districts, particularly in red states.Red states will vote for black Republicans. They won't vote for black Democrats.
That's true.
But that's because they're red states, not because they're racist.
Yep.
And so really, there's an entire section of the Voting Rights Act that next month probably ought to be gotten rid of. In a reconciliation bill or some kind of must-pass thing.
Which
We
portion?
need to do massive election integrity reform in Congress, including banning the census from using illegals for the purpose of apportionment, getting rid of this Voting Rights Act business where you have to have X number of majority-minority seats, as though certain minority groups can't get anybody elected to represent them unless they're the majority. That is partisan Democrat crap disguised as civil rights, and it's time for that to go away.
Hey, Scott.
We need national vote, and then we need national voter ID as well. That
definitely needs to pass.
And clean voter rolls.
Yeah, which we know that won't happen here in Illinois. But listen,
not without the feds coming in and making it happen.
This is so true. Charles and I were talking earlier about legacy media, corporate media, and some of the things that they need to change as it relates to how they convey the news. And I'm telling you, if stop everything you're doing, head over to spectator.org/MyLordTheLies. That is the article that you have to read today. Seeing this list, Scott, of some of the, and they called us conspiracy theorists throughout this whole last 4 years, but seeing the 60+ lies, flat out lies. The assassination attempt on Trump was staged by the Trump campaign. Trump saying suckers and losers, the Russian collusion, just to name a few. J6 was an insurrection. I mean, there are 60+ lies that they fed to the American people.
Right.
I mean, Scott, if this
provable lies at the time,
yes,
not things we found out later were wrong. These were things that were known to be lies, and that the legacy corporate propaganda press imposed on the public while they were censoring dissenting points of view on Facebook and then Twitter and certainly everything that Google puts out, whether it's YouTube or Google searches or any of that stuff. They did everything they could to ban alternative viewpoints, and then they started foisting immediately provable lies on the American public nonstop for like 6 or 7 years.
Yeah.
And you're asking me what can be done about this? The answer is put these people out of business.
Mm.
That's the only thing you can do, because none of these institutions can be saved.
Wow. And that's one.
They need we need an entirely different media, and we're getting there.
Yes, we are.
Because if you look at the ratings of CNN and MSNBC and the newspaper circulation counts and all these kinds of things, the market is doing everything it can to kill these institutions. But what I would love to see happen, and I'm going to sound a little like Bernie Sanders saying this, but there's 5 mega corporations that control pretty much 90% of the cable TV channels and a great deal of the mainstream media, whether it's newspapers or some of these other things. I think we need to do some antitrust actions and break up a bunch of these companies and make it so that these cable channels have to stand on their own 2 feet and aren't loss leaders for Comcast or some of these other things. And some of these news divisions will go away, which they should go away, because they're not actively news organizations anymore.
Yeah, I mean,
they're propaganda shops.
And when you look at it, that's one of the reasons I personally believe they're trying to get rid of the avenues of the TikToks, X now, because that's where the information is getting out, and Trump proved that.
Yes.
This last election. So I mean, thank God that Elon bought X. I'm looking at this list, and we gotta go. But I'm looking at this list. I lost my YouTube channel for a lot of the things that I spoke about that's on this list, Scott.
I know. I can't tell you how many times I got banned from Facebook by saying, hey, this is BS.
Yeah.
This isn't true. Oh, no, it is true. And it's well, it's not. So where do I go for recourse now? You know?
Yeah,
it's absolutely abysmal how badly these people have abused the American public, and there has to be accountability for it.
I agree. Scott, we gotta leave it there. I hate I couldn't get into this Candace Owens discussion with you. He's the publisher of The Hayride, senior editor at the American Spectator, and author of Racism, Revenge, and Brewing, and King of the Jungle. Thanks so much for joining us on Chicago Morning Answers.
Thank you so much.
See you guys. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. He joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Connect with Dan and Amy using the AM 560 mobile app. Download it today at 560theanswer.com/mobile.
Are you looking for a trustworthy garage to keep your Dodge Ram 45 or 5500 Cummins engine in tip-top shape? Look no further than Remke's Garage in Marengo. At Remke's Garage, their experienced team